Now there's going to come a stage where we have all of the pages in our book that we want, so we need to be able to program the book coming to an end, and all we really want is for the book cover, the rear, to fold over to effectively close the book and maybe move off the screen in exactly the same way as the opening book appeared on the screen. Let's assume for what we're doing here that this is our final set of images, so I'm going to go to my objects and animation screen to make a start. Well, what we want to happen here is the back cover to be the animated part of this section. Currently it's page 10, so all we need to do here, in the previous pages we would have changed page 10 for page 12, but here we need the back cover. So if we go to our properties and our picture change option, we can pick up the back cover. Now something odd happens here. Let me go back to the animation tab, because the back cover has come up at 97.222. Why is that? It's because PicturesToExe has recognized that page 11 is already in place, so it's clipped the back cover to page 11. Pretty simple to put right, we just need to double click the X. But we need to remember that we've got two keyframes here and we clone the keyframe, so if I move that cursor over, you'll notice when we get to the second keyframe we've got the same problem there, so we need to just click it to fix that too. Now we've got to think about what should be facing us on the inside of the back cover. If I click to the left, for example, and we look over to the right, we can see it's page 9. That's okay, because when the book cover turns over, it's going to cover that up, but it does mean that sitting on here should be number 10. But we've got number 11, but if you remember, we set number 11 up to be on the other side. That's number 11, so we've got to make a couple of changes here. First thing is to change 11 for 10. Let's do that via the properties. But of course, as soon as we do it, we won't see anything, because what we need to do is to reverse these two here. We need to show the back side and not the front side, so that when this turns over, the cover works as expected. But of course it does leave us with a couple of parts that we don't require, and perhaps it's a little bit confusing here because we went on and added a picture to page 12. In actual fact, in our little scenario here, page 12 is not required. We went up to a maximum of 10 pages. So if I highlight 12 and delete, that takes us one stage closer. And the final thing is we've got two versions of the back cover here. We've still got the original sitting there from when we first created it. So let's delete that too. And with a bit of luck, and if we've got things right, then we should have the book closing nicely. And all we need to think about is removing it from the screen. But I did spot something else too. As the back cover turns, of course, I spotted that the image is actually a little bit too big. So we do need to go to page 10 and just go back and reapply the original size. Small point, but it just covers up that nice little lip, which is part and parcel of what we've created. So now all we need to do is to create that endpoint. Now to create the endpoint, it's tempting to just take the animation we created at the start and copy and paste that at the end. But we need to change so much, I'm not sure there's a great advantage to doing that. Even the speed would be wrong, because we adjusted the speed here to be slowing down because this is coming onto the screen. At the end, the book is leaving the screen. So I think I'll go to the end of my slide list here, right click and add a blank slide, Control S. I'm going to go to my objects and animation screen. I do need that frame again, because if we do decide to go through our slideshow and reduce the size overall to 80 or 85%, we'd need to do it with the front cover and the back cover. And of course, if we right click and add an image, doesn't really matter which one we pick, but we'll pick the back cover. And of course the back cover needs to be over the left hand side. So let's go to the center, right click and choose 100. All we need to do now we know that's the resting point, what do we want to do to take it off the screen? Well, we're going to need another keyframe. So Alt Insert. Going to need that somewhere around 4 seconds, but again, that's going to be personal. What do I want to do? Well, I want it to move off the screen. I'd like to do a bit of rotation. Maybe I'd like it to zoom down a little bit. Quite a bit of change there. Let's just have a quick look before we add the speed. That looks okay to me. So going back to my first keyframe, the speed now, because we're leaving the screen, is accelerate for all 3 of the animation options we've applied. Let's close this down and take a look, because I think we may have a little bit of a problem here. So I'm going to go back to page 7 and 8 and let's have a preview. Now I think we're going to see an error here. In fact, I'm pretty confident we will. Look at the tree. There's a problem with that. Let me go back into this image and the objects and animation screen. Whenever that happens, don't panic, because it's usually something simple, and it is here really. But it's the sort of thing that slips past us from time to time. And it's probably come about because we took a normal page and we've created our back cover from that. But if you remember, when we applied a child to the parent of whatever page was turning, we had to put a y minus 180 in there. Now we're showing this on the right side of the page and not the back side, then it's not quite right, is it? So the first thing we need to do is to double click the Y, which is going to make it look as though the picture disappears. But in actual fact it hasn't disappeared. What we need to do is to right click the X and make it a minus 100. But there's also something else, isn't there? Because we need to go to the properties and say, no, I want to see the front side this time and not the back side. Now coming back into the main screen, I've got another problem here. If I select this image and I move between the two, you can see the background changes, or the cover changes. And that's because the orientation of the cover in this image is different to what we've got here. We're going to need to rotate that on the Y axis. Let's select it, go to the Objects and Animation screen. So I need to select my first keyframe. To be honest, it may be easier here if we actually remove that second keyframe and we recreate it from scratch. Let's select this one. What we need to do is to reset the center, so that's how the image first appeared on screen. What I should have done is to rotate this 180, then move it into position, which is our minus 100, then Alt Insert to give me my keyframe at 4 seconds interval, and then decide what I want to happen. We'll have it coming off, down, we'll have a bit of rotation, a bit of zoom, down, and a bit of 3D as well. Let's go to the, we'll have a bit of movement there as well. Drag it back, test it. That looks okay. Let's close and make sure that I've fixed the problem. And sometimes it's best to do it in the way I'm doing it here. So there we go, there's no change between the two. So let's put the cursor at the 7 and 8 page and press play just to make sure that the end of our book looks okay. And finally, we should get it drifting off the screen to finish.